Good morning, everyone. This is Dana from NexGen, and I hope everyone has had a wonderful weekend, and we look forward to a fantastic week. If you remember a couple of weeks ago, I talked to you about some personal goals, things that we always strive for. And I will tell you, along the way of striving for things, whether it be a fitness goal or a financial goal or an occupational goal, or for those that are pursuing their education, along the way, we're going to run into some disappointment. Now, that's not to say that we shouldn't pursue our goals, because I know that we will. But along with it, we also need to look for ways of how we deal with disappointments. And on this channel, I've talked to you about a couple of things that have happened, and I won't belabor the point, but I want to go through a process that has helped me and others deal with disappointment. And if some of you have some additional ideas, we would love to see them in the comments section. So go ahead and let's talk about some ways we deal with disappointment. Okay, I have my notes here. So I will go ahead and start with an example, which is that property that I was telling you last year that I was trying to sell. And it looked like I was going to end up with a $400,000 paperweight and growing. Well, I will tell you, the emotions that I felt were disappointment and anger. And the process for me dealing with it is that I needed to feel it and let it out. And it's a healthy way to achieve emotional health by confiding in friends and family, and if necessary, professionals. And I couldn't keep this toxic emotion bottled up. So I went to my go-to outlets. And this was like something I'd never felt before. So I kind of had to ratchet it up a bit. So I would listen to spiritual music. Now that actually helped me when my mother had passed away. Cleaning the house, that's also my go-to when I feel disappointment or anxious. Exercising, of course, and journaling. And the point was to regulate my emotions by feeling whatever I was feeling and allowing it to pass. And they did some research, and it showed that emotional suppression can hinder our personal growth, which means you don't want to bottle it up. And without the ability to feel emotions and actively express them, then a person can have trouble adapting to new and unfamiliar situations. So there may be some disappointments that you've never encountered before, like this particular one. I've never encountered anything like this. So dealing with it and expressing it actually was healthy for me. Also, talking to supportive, and that's the operative word here, supportive family and friends about my disappointment brought about some much needed clarity. When I got an outside perspective other than my own, I began to see things as the way they really were, rather than how I was feeling. So I basically went outside of myself when I talked to other people. And this actually helped calm me down. Now, the operative here is that they have to be supportive and have your best interest in mind when you seek or when you talk to these supportive friends or family. And of course, I had to balance that external validation with my own inner wisdom. Now, the problem with emotions like disappointment is that it could completely derail my vision of myself. I would start having what we call self-doubt. I would doubt my ability and then feel like an imposter. And when I was with, and I still am with, the Command Purpose Foundation. They did talk a little bit about imposter syndrome. So I do have a link to the Command Purpose Foundation in the link below for additional information. Now, my sense of self can be skewed if I had too many disappointments. And that's why it's important for me to know my own core values and principles. Basically, my why. Why am I doing this? Examine it. Make sure that what I'm doing lines up with my core values and principles. And keeping that why alive helped me get up and try again while keeping my self-worth intact. So when I was going through that disappointment of the house or the property not selling, I had to go back to and revisit my why. Now, once I've checked in with myself and my supporters, it makes it easier to start fresh, if you will. And then part of practicing self-acceptance is to actually root myself in my now, my present. And we've talked about this in other videos where we talked about being mindful and being in the present. And accepting that present moment allowed me to acknowledge what was real. And just like breathing, disappointment comes and goes. So when I breathe into it and then just let it pass. So that is one thing that I actually learned that was new, was self-acceptance. Now, the worst thing I could have done was to brood over the negative experience. I knew that I needed time to deal with this issue, and I wasn't really expecting myself to bounce back if I didn't go through these different steps. So I needed these steps basically for my own self-validation. I gave myself time to accept my circumstance, to talk to other people that were helping me. And I needed to do this because if I didn't do this, every time I would get disappointed, it would take me to a point of anxiety, negative thinking, or even resentment. So in other words, I needed these ways that I talked to you about to where if I fell, or even if I got knocked down, I wouldn't stay down. I would get back up. Now, we all experience disappointments in our life, and these are just some of the ways that I looked at how I could deal with disappointments in my life. And doing some research and talking to people, I actually added a couple more. And I tell you, they have definitely helped me tremendously. So hopefully this information is helpful to you. Okay, so what we did was we looked at some different ways that we can deal with disappointment. And I just basically gave you an example of my more recent, or my more, to me, a very significant disappointment, and how I worked through it. And I will tell you, this picture basically shows what I looked like when I was going through the disappointment. But I will tell you, now that I look back, and this has been over a year that this has happened, I looked back and it really wasn't as bad as I thought it was. But I will tell you, when I was going through it, it was bad. But I will tell you, as we grow and as we get additional information, and we are always seeking additional information, just know that when we have disappointments along the way, that there is ways to deal with it. So if you have any additional ways that we can deal with disappointment, definitely feel free to put that in the comment section. And also, I may have some additional information for you in the description below. Have a great week and continue to pursue your goals.
Make sure to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can never miss another video.